right, we do have some people on, so we're going to get started. We might have a few that join us. So I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today on creating a safe environment in your laundromat. Pretty excited about this webinar. It's a topic that we really have not done too many webinars on, but a topic that I know gets discussed a lot on social media and our community. So I think we'll learn some very important information today. So before we get started and I introduce our panelists, to type in or to ask your questions, you will type those in. So you should see a box kind of over to the right-hand side of your screen, a control box, and there is an area for questions. So at any point you can type your question in, and we're gonna go through, I have some questions for both panelists, and then at the end we will address your questions. We're also recording this program, so within 24 hours you'll get an email with the recording. So if you wanna, if you have to leave early or you want to go back through and listen to some of it, you will get that recording. All right, so with that, I want to introduce our panelists. Oops, sorry about that. I went a little too far and my screen closed. Okay, now can you see the slide presentation?
I can.
Okay. Okay, so we have two panelists today. First is Bill Gilbert. He is with the Distributor Service Laundry Machinery Corp. In South Carolina. And then we have Matt Gabris, and him and his wife own the Wash Basket in Michigan. And just a little fun fact, but Matt's wife, Jen, also works for the CLA. She, for those of you who religiously read our Planet Laundry monthly magazine, she is the one who designs that for us. So, and then her and Matt own a laundromat together. So just to get started, I'll start with you, Bill. Can you share a little bit more about yourself? So how long you've been in the industry, what you did before laundry, kind of what you do now, just so everyone can get an idea of who the panelists are.
Yeah, Danielle, I first of all want to thank you for asking me to participate in this thing. And I guess my background to allow me to share with this information, I was a police officer back in the mid-70s through about mid-80s. Started off in the uniform division and then transferred to what's called a major crimes investigative unit. I was an investigative sergeant. We handled homicides, armed robberies, and house break-ins. And actually, I investigated a couple of armed robberies at Laundromat. So I'm ready to field questions for you. I currently have a service laundry machinery company. I've been in the laundry business for about 40 years now. And yeah, I'm a distributor, and we also own about 13 laundromats.
Wow, great. Well, thank you, Bill. Matt, you can share a little bit about yourself too.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Danielle. Again, thanks for having me. Glad to hopefully participate and provide some good facts and for the attendees. So I am a laundromat owner, as Danielle said, but that's Jen's and my kind of not side business. It's a legitimate active business, but professionally in my day job, I've been a safety leader, VP director for 4 large food and beverage companies: Miller Coors, Sara Lee, Smithfield Foods, and most recently the 3rd largest commercial bakery in the world called Aspire Bakeries. So I've led the safety efforts for these companies. When it comes to industrial safety, I've been in that for 27 years. My education is bachelor's and master's in industrial safety and environmental compliance. And this is what I do for a living, as well as the laundromat. So hopefully I can add some color to this.
Great, thank you. And just one more thing I want to add about Matt. So for those of you after this who may be looking for more information, he did just write an article for, I believe it was the October, is it the October issue of Planet Laundry, on safety in laundromat. So you can also check that out. All right, so let's get started. So one of the biggest issues that we hear about in a laundromat, especially when they are a coin laundry, is cash control. So Bill, what would you say is the biggest issue with managing cash, and what would be your best advice for avoiding issues?
Well, first of all, and I'm a true believer in this, if you're going to own a coin laundry, collect it yourself. Now, if you have a wife to be able to join with you, yes, by all means, but it's extremely important to consider collecting yourself. You can maintain, you can, count the money, you know good and well that the money that you collect is an accurate count. But that's the main thing that I'd like to, people to manage. Now, if it's not possible, if you have a absentee ownership, then keep records. Most of the bill changers nowadays have a digital audit that can be shared with the owner. But by all means, try to do it yourself.
Matt, anything to add, or is that how you and Jen handle it?
Yeah, I would say maybe a couple other things on that. I do that myself. That's my Sunday chore. And saying that, another thing I do is I'm very irregular as far as time that I collect cash. It might be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or it might be 11 o'clock at night, or it might be first thing in the morning. And I typically I do it on Sundays, but I do alternate days. And not to say we have a large crime spree up here in northern Michigan, but I do know just from experience and working with route delivery drivers for bread routes, they did the same thing. It was, they would show up for the routes, but it would be irregular. And the less patterns you can show for anybody who's scoping the joint is good. The other things that I'll mention a little bit later is, make sure you have good lighting. Security cameras are always good. Those kind of things. Make sure there's no visible obstructions outside, like large trees or bushes where, the bad guys can hide. Certainly if you get robbed, it may be somebody inside the laundromat kind of waiting for you, trying to be inconspicuous, but, be aware of your surroundings. Like you said, Bill, maybe not a wife, but, kind of having somebody with you or somebody there while you're doing it is not a bad idea. And try to do it in hours that are, not necessarily your peak. The fewer people you see or that see you while you're doing it, the less ideas that get popped in their head. We recently had one of our arcade games robbed in our laundromat, and it was, the guy picked a time that nobody was there, and luckily we had security cameras and we caught him. But just don't give the enemy any advantages on things like he can pattern you.
Good advice. So Bill, besides collecting yourself, any other best practices they should keep in mind with controlling and managing their cash?
Yeah, and I'll go along with what Matt was saying. That first of all, yes, alternating collection times is very important. Back in investigative days, when I interviewed somebody that was arrested for armed robbery, I'd ask them why, how about the planning and things like that, and it was obvious that that people were being watched, and if somebody were to collect at the same time, the same day, the same procedure, it was an easy pickings for the bad guy. So yes, alternate that time to collect, maybe a different day. But that's what bad guys find out is they stake out, and it could be a matter of opportunity. If you're collecting during business hours and you're walking around with a 5-gallon bucket full of quarters, of course, bad guys aren't going to pick that thing up. It's about 60 pounds and then try to run down the road. But opening up, say, a front loading type bill changer. It's easy to see all the bills being wrapped up in a rubber band, and you'd be surprised at how many people sit around and see things like that. Something may not happen then, but going home or being with friends and drinking a beer, watching TV, and said, hey man, I know where we can find some money. So eliminate the temptation.
Another trick I use, hopefully I'm doing this right, but I used to go down there with my bank bags and put my bills in there. Now I walk out of the laundromat at my alternating hours with a Dollar General or a Walmart plastic bag with other stuff in it, and it's just not as tempting. It just looks like an regular old bag. So
yeah, not as obvious that it's cash.
Yeah, and along that line, just be observant when you're collecting. See who's in the laundry. You don't have to be suspicious about everybody, but it's while you're collecting during the business time, everybody's going to watch you because they see what you're doing, and they see all the money, and so it's a temptation to ask questions, and if you did it during business times, try not to be distracted. There's those who come up and ask you for a change for a $20 bill, and while you're collecting, you kind of break your thoughts about security and people watching. But even bad guys do that. They send a little decoy in to distract you, and especially if you set your keys down somewhere and all of a sudden your keys are missing, and so be observant who's watching you, or cars on the outside, things like that people, if it's out of the ordinary, just be aware of what's going on around you.
And then you spurred a thought, Bill. One other thing we do fairly regularly and not on any type of schedule is we not only do we try to provide the creature comforts to our customers, but we also try to just sporadically be kind to our customers. And I'll tell you a little story here in a second. But if I'm in there doing change or mopping the floors or fixing a dryer or whatever it is, and I see somebody kind of hanging out, I'll say, you know what? It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock. It's free soda time. So here's $1 bill, and I'll give you a soda. And you build that customer loyalty with just little trinkets and random acts of kindness. We do that all the time. And what happened, we've had our laundromat for just about 10 years now, is we did get robbed just again the same day, our arcade machine. And within 30 minutes of it being robbed, we had customers calling and saying, hey guys, it's open, it's broken and something happened. And we have lots of little birdies out there in our community that watch over stuff for us. And it's just that they like coming into our place because it's well lighted, it's clean, and we just treat them like we want to be treated, and get little tricks, or we give them a box of soap, or just say thank you a lot, and just be kind to your employees and to your customers.
That's exactly right. I can echo with what you just said, and put a quarter in the dryer, say listen, or something. It's just a good customer relationship, especially if something does happen. People are more willing to cooperate with the police and the owner because they're friends, because they've got a great business and somebody stepped on their business, and so they'll help. And that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to another issue that laundromats seem to experience quite a bit, which is vandalism, and especially in those laundromats that are either fully or partially unattended. So, Bill, we'll start with you. What can owners do to protect their business against vandalism, both on the interior and the exterior of the building?
Matt went to this idea early, and it was lighting. Geez, if you've got plenty of lighting, doesn't cost that much more to upgrade to an LED or something and brighten that business up, and especially on the outside. Outside is getting darker early, and bad guys hate light. It's just it's not that wouldn't be inside, but even on the outside. Spotlights or parking lights, if you lease a building, or if you own your building, sometimes in leasing your building in a shopping center, you're able to contact the local utility and they'll put these security lights up and light that rascal up. So it's nothing more frustrating than walking into your business and somebody has broke into your game machines or spray painted on the side of the wall or took a hammer to the wash machine because the door wouldn't open up or something like that. But typical vandalism is usually going for money and taking a crowbar and peeling off the front of a wash machine and or dryer or something like that. And that's the typical robbery vandalism. Now, you do have every so often a jealous husband or a spouse that wants to run a car through the thing, but that's about the most heavy duty vandalism that you'll see. But it happens and stuff. But it's either a frustration thing for a customer, especially if they changer took a $5 bill and didn't give them change, instead of trying to call the owner, they take out a hammer and smash it and says, I'll teach you. But that's, part of those vandalism things. But most important, light it up and put those cameras in there. And cameras is a great deterrent, but, banks get robbed also. But you're more likely to catch somebody with a camera, a good camera system, digital camera.
Matt, anything else to add for vandalism preventing?
Yeah, I certainly agree with Bill. I mean, part of that is, and we have both. We have lighting and cameras. And one of it is reactive, the other is proactive. And I like to put my money in the proactive side if we can. Again, our cameras have already paid for themselves just by what they've caught. We've had some folks steal some smaller stuff, or when somebody put a hard case suitcase in one of our washers and ended up burning out a transmission. I mean, really, you can do that, but I guess you can. But another thing we did is we just put a landline phone right by the entrance of our door. I mean, it's part of our phone bill. I mean, people can call long distance, I guess, with it, but long distance is no longer, what it used to be. So we put a phone there. So people that don't have a cell phone, if they see something or just want to talk to us or, use the phone, it is, as far as I know, it's never been abused, and it's only been used for good things. Like we had, water, one of our washers overflow and part of the laundromat was flooded. We got a call within 5 minutes that, hey, we got a problem down here. We put a phone there that's easily accessible. I would say, there's this theory out there, it's called the broken window theory. If you have, you have something wrong with the exterior building that looks like it makes it look shoddy, get it fixed quick. Vandals will kind of build off of destruction that's already there. So the theory is somebody breaks a window on a building, and then somebody comes by and says, that's broken, I'm going to throw a rock at the other one, and then the other one, and it just goes downhill from there. So keep your exterior clean, well painted, windows in good repair, grass mowed, stuff like that. I think appearance makes a big difference. The other thing we do too is again, we're in a small community, maybe harder in the larger municipalities, but we're involved in our community. I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm president of the Downtown Development Association. I'm involved in a whole bunch of things around here. We're involved. So we have lots of eyes out there and lots of people ready to talk to us if they hear anything or see anything. And it's just that it's whatever you can do to partner with the community. Especially the folks that come into your laundromat. Again, they'll narc them out. That's a little bit on the reactive side, but it's also, I've had customers chew other people out for bumping our coin pusher or trying to shove 6 quarters in a dryer all at once. They kind of self-police it. We also put up this is kind of a funny story. We put up a push broom on a nail on one of the walls with a dustpan, and you would be surprised how many people, we figure we've got people for about an hour and a half that'll pick up that broom and just sweep because they just want something to do. And hey, I'm doing a little cleaning, and they'll just do it. And you know what? And, you know, my wife originally was like, well, they might steal the room. And I'm like, well, I guess we'd be out $6 then. So let's just give it a try. And, you know, 8 years later, that room still sits there. We've actually had to replace it because it's got a lot of use, but we do that too. So.
I think that the other thing we sometimes hear where vandalism takes place is the bathroom. Have you ever had issues with your bathroom or any best practices on people, how they manage that? And I think sometimes it's from people who aren't customers.
Yeah. People get mad when you run out of toilet paper. I found that out. Yeah. So it's getting,
you'd be surprised that what is stolen out of a toilet because they won't go down the street to the hardware store. It's just amazing. So,
yeah.
Hard to lock down everything in your toilet. So
that's open the lid up and steal the guts.
Yeah. We've had a few accidents in there where my attendant refuses to clean it up, so I'll get a phone call. So I'm a man of many facets, and it's few and far between. So that's more the exception than the rule. But keep your toilet paper stocked.
So Bill, since you have the experience as a police officer, if someone is vandalized, what should an owner do as far as like what information do they need to report to the police to make sure insurance has what they need? Like any advice there on how they handle it once they're vandalized?
Yeah, it's, after the frustration of a owner seeing what's happening, take pictures. Okay, take pictures and pull the recordings of your camera system if you've got one. Then contact the police, because that's what they're going to need is photographs, especially of a camera system. And a lot of local police know the local thug that does something like this, and you also have the customers like Matt's talking about that'll quickly volunteer and say, hey, yeah, that's old Junior down the street that's homeless, and yeah, he's the one that I think that I saw in here. But get those pictures done, and if you had damage done to your washers or dryer or something like that, next person to call, or not right away, but is your distributor. Your insurance company is going to know what the value is on that torn up coin box in front of a wash machine. So have all this information ready, and then the police officer can add it to the report. The more damage, unfortunately, the higher the crime may be. So if you've got $4,000 or $5,000 worth of damage, then yeah, it turns from a misdemeanor to a felony. And that's important in several ways. One of them that's instead of the guy being slapped on the wrist and let go, then it may be an offense that keeps him in jail a little bit longer versus getting back out and tearing up your laundry again. But the other thing is, if it's a minor thing, your insurance company, before you file a claim and you have a $5,000 deductible and you have $1,000 worth of damage, don't file the claim. That's a red flag for the insurance company that says, hey, because somebody says, well, I paid big bucks for this insurance company. But if you just settle the thing, a small vandalism yourself versus making a claim to the insurance company, it's going to save you $1 or $2, or versus cancellation of your policy. So keep that in mind.
Great, good advice. So similar to vandalism, many laundromats actually get burglarized, where it is straight for the money, or even robbing the owners themselves. So what protections can owners take to try to prevent a break-in or robbery of themselves or their staff?
Let's go back to the camera system. And we'll probably, Matt and I will probably say camera for every question, but it's a wonderful deterrent, but it also protects yourself. Now, burglaries usually occur when nobody's there. A robbery would occur with person to person, but a burglary, if a new owner or an existing laundromat owner would check their property. Do they have good proper locks on the door system? Dryer venting. That's one of the main ways somebody breaks into a laundromat is through the dryer vents. Now, if they're single 8-inch vents, then not even, well, maybe a leprechaun to get in, but usually these vents are large 24 or 32 by 32 inch gooseneck things going out the roof that just invites somebody to crawl right in and hopefully have a rope or drop through into a dryer manifold into behind the dryers. A good thing to have back behind those dryers is a motion detector in case that happens. But in the case of the vent itself, I owned a laundry in South Carolina that had those goosenecks, but I had somebody make a metal frame with what they call rebar, which is about the thickness of your finger, crisscross, not covered up, but crisscross so to prevent somebody from getting in. Never did have somebody, but I'm sure there are people that looked and saw that crisscross and bar, and they said, no, we don't even want to jerk the top thing off. But that's an entry point. You'd be surprised at people that take a sledgehammer and knock a hole in a cinder block to get in. But if you have motion detector or some type of vibration thing that occurs, the alarm system is going to go off. And with alarm systems, I would highly suggest the loudest horn that you could get. Somebody's got to have ice water running through the veins to sit and break into money boxes with alarm system blaring in their ear. So a lot of noise, a lot of light, and a lot of the protection on the doors or where your entry parts are. That's what I would secure. It doesn't have to be ugly. Don't be putting bars all over your windows and things like that. It's just be preventive. I've seen people put plexiglass versus regular glass in some of the doors, just to prevent people from throwing a cinder block through. But knowing different type of situations, you could have a laundromat that you probably need somebody with a shotgun to protect, people in there standing by. And yes, you do have what Matt referred to as the broken windows and things like that. But a cinder block or a piece of block that's sitting outside is a temptation to somebody to throw the rock through that glass door, crawl in, and do whatever damage he can get. Or it may be breaking into the snack machine to steal potato chips or something. But you're going to have to end up paying for a door and everything else just for a little bit of vandalism. But there's no cure-all. But if you do have the lights, you do have the camera system, you do have an alarm system, that's all going to be in your favor if something does occur.
Great. I don't know, Matt, if you have anything more
Yeah.
to add.
Yeah, I've got a few things. Some of it's proactive, some of it's reactive. I don't, again, I totally agree with Bill. Lighting on cameras, always a good idea. You can never have too much. I would say a few other things. Post your hours. We sometimes stay open past our posted hours just because we don't have an electronic closing system and we don't have an attendant at night. And, that hasn't been an issue, but by posting the hours, you also post the right for people not to be in there past those hours. You can let them, but if you have, vagrants, homeless, some non-good do-gooders, you can legally kick them out. So if you find somebody sleeping in there, out. I would say a big thing, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but super important, train your employees and tell them, and kind of like voting in Chicago, early and often, tell them if they're ever robbed, if they ever have a gun pointed at them, give it to them, give them the cash, it's yours. You can never replace a human life, just take it. Your insurance company will take it. Most likely they probably will have seen the robber unless they have a mask or something on, but you never want to jeopardize that. And you don't want to be seen as a Scrooge, an ogre, a bad boss kind of thing for something like that. So always keep your employees' safety in mind first and foremost. I would also say, and this has come to play in our laundromat, know your other business owners in your vicinity. So if they're getting robbed, you probably are on the list. Or something you forgot or something you didn't do. But that collaboration, the 2 times that I've been robbed with the arcade machine, we talked to 2 store owners, and they had video footage of people paying with quarters miraculously right after they robbed our arcade machine. So we kind of, we knew who it was. We just didn't have cameras at the time, couldn't prove it, and then we fixed it the second time. The other thing I would suggest, going back to that phone, have the phone in the laundromat, but also have a suggestion box or a complaint box. If somebody loses a dollar bill, a quarter, the man ripped them off, and they can't vent that, and you can't fix those little discontents out there, that could escalate into somebody may have a bad day and say, damn it, I'm going to throw a brick through that, freaking window, or I'm going to spray paint, the 4-letter word on the side of the building or something like that. But if you can nip that in the bud in the first part, and a lot of times it's, I lost a dollar in the vending machine. You call them up, you treat that dollar just like you lost $1,000. It's the most important thing. Treat them, talk to them, make them recognize that you're a human being, you're a small business owner, and we want to make it right. I've tracked somebody down for a week before to go give them a dollar, and they were just as happy as a clam, and kind of win them. It's that good customer service again. So have that available for them. Give them a vent, to out. So. Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, the cash control, vandalism, burglary. I think we'll transition now to more employee and customer safety. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions for Bill or Matt, add them to that question box. We'll get to those shortly. So when we talk about employee and customer safety, so injuries that can happen from slips and falls or chemicals, fires, things like that. So Matt, maybe we'll start with you because a lot of this is the focus of your article. Can you share some best practices for keeping your employees and your customers safe, and ultimately you from a lawsuit? I think is part of it as well.
Yeah, so I'll touch base on that again. Take a look at that article if you can, and I think it's posted online now too. I have about 10 items, and let me say this. I'm going to say it twice just to kind of remember. I know, good marketing people say you have to hear something 6 times to remember it. My wife says I'm about 9 times, so I'm a little thick. None of these are expensive, relatively speaking. I'm going to talk about chemicals here in just a second, and potentially an eye wash is probably the most expensive thing that will be on this list. If you deal with chemicals, which most of you do, whether they're mostly cleaning chemicals, some detergents, some of the harsher caustics, maybe a few acids to clean. If you have employees, or even you do have a chemical storage area, I would say have an eye wash. You can buy the portable ones out of Grainger or Amazon that mount on the wall. They're 2 little water bottles, that's fine. But I personally, my first paying job out of college was a chemist for a chemical treatment facility, and I got splashed with caustic, and I didn't really realize what was going on. Within the side of my face was burning, and I couldn't find an eye wash, and I remember that very distinctly. And it's the law, but it also is compensable. And I'll use 2 terms. There's legal reasons and compensable reasons, and legal reasons goes into the OSHA side of this. So just to kind of prelude this, if you have more than 10 employees, all of these laws apply to you, and that means more than 10 employees at multiple locations. So if you have less than that, you are still at risk of getting an OSHA visit. I don't know of a lot of OSHA visits at laundromats, so that's fine, but it's better to prepare for the worst and plan and hope for the best. The other side of the coin is, the legal world and compensability. Slips, trips, and falls. Somebody gets hurt, whether it's an employee or whether it's a customer, it's going to go either in your workers' compensation bucket and insurance. And if you don't have it, then you're at risk to losing the business potentially. These things could get into 6 figures, and I dealt with them every week. And then there's the general liability side of thing. That's where if a customer gets injured and they try to sue you or do sue you, these can come to bite you. So from a legal standpoint, if you have more than 10 employees, you have to keep records of injuries. They're called injury and illness logs. They are available. I've got the link on my article, but they're available at the Department of Labor OSHA website, and they're called OSHA 300 and 300As, and you have to fill them out within 7 days if you have an injury at your place of work. And those have to be readily available within 4 hours if you get an OSHA inspection. 99 times out of 100, you're never going to use them, but that one time you get an inspection, they'll ask for them. And potentially your insurance carrier will ask for that. They'll ask for your injury rate, and injury rate is communicated via percentage of your workforce. So if you get one of your employees hurt in 1 year and you have 10 employees, you have a 10 reportable injury rate. You have 10% of your workforce that's been injured. It's as simple as that. Now I've had, multiple plants, up to 55 plants at one time. One plant would have 600 people. So those numbers were, a lot less. Well, actually there was a lot more people injured, but the ratio was a lot less. So record keeping, it's easy. It's a one pager at the end of the year. You have to fill out a summary and have it available. The second one is actually, it's the second most cited citation in industry. It's called HAZCOM, or hazard communication. And that's making sure that you have safety data sheets for your chemicals that you have on site. Again, laundromats do not get cited a lot for this, but general industry does. And laundromats are certainly not exempt from this requirement. So if you do auto soap feed and softener feed to your washers, you should have a material safety data sheet. The manufacturer that supplies it should have it. They can give you a paper copy. You can print it offline. I also printed a service that you can go to free. And any chemical you have in your laundromat, whether that's degreaser, whether that's whiteout, whether that's Windex, whether that's hydraulic fluid, you name it, you should have a sheet for it. There's services that you can subscribe to that do it, but really, first of all, the best way to manage chemicals is not have it. So minimize the number of chemicals you have on site. So you have just what you use. Don't have any more, don't have any less. And having these sheets, you can put them into the 3-ring binder, put them on a shelf. And again, 99 times of 100, nobody will ask for them. But by law, you are required to train your employees that you have these sheets and you can show them to them in case of an emergency. And the purpose of the sheets are if an attendant or an employee gets splashed, like I just said with my scenario, by an alkaline or a caustic cleaner in their eye or their face, if they go to the clinic or they go to the hospital, I've actually had this happen before a few times. The emergency room will turn them away because they don't know what they're working with. They don't know what kind of chemical that is. So if they take that sheet with them, or I don't know if anybody faxes anymore, but if you send it with them, or you can email it over to them or get it to it somehow, at least have the name of it, then they'll know how to treat it. They're going to treat a caustic burn very different than they are an acid burn or things like that. So you have to have those. Workers' rights posters. Again, this is kind of on the legal side of things. Once again, if you have more than 10 employees, they are free from the Department of Labor site. It just has to have at least 8.5 by 11. You have to have it posted on the workers' right to communicate and the workers' right to know. It should be back in your break room, that the workers have the right to call the 1-800-OSHA number anytime they want. If they don't get the right answer from their boss, he says, hey, you're working me too long, or there's hazardous conditions, and they don't do anything about it, they have the right to call OSHA, and OSHA has to inquire. They don't always come in, but they will give you a phone call, they'll send you an email, or they come in for a visit. So you have to have that poster up. Actually, the most, I actually researched this, it's actually surprised me a little bit, but the most prevalent injury in laundromats is electrical, is actually people getting shocked by frayed wires, by trying to go in the breaker box, by getting water on electrical. This is not, there are volumes of electrical code written. Trust me, you do not have to read them. They'll put you to sleep at night, especially if you're not you're not an electron jockey. But the basic stuff. Keep your covers on your plugs. Make sure you have a GFCI outlet within 6 feet of a water source. You know, use extension cords sparingly. And if you do, use them and remove them. You know, it's a trip hazard. It's also easily, you can have a cart run over it. You can have somebody, you know, they can get frayed, they can get damaged pretty easily. A few other things I'll go down. Lockout, tag out. This is not so much in laundromats, but if you're doing if you're upgrading your laundromat, or if you're, you know, demoing your laundromat, you're changing it, the electrical source that you are powering your washers and dryers to, make sure that the person working on that, and it may be you, has control of the circuit. And that means a lot of times in the back room, you've got a breaker. That breaker arm is either pulled down while they're working on it, and a lock on it. If you have contractors coming and going and moving around, you know, in an industrial setting, this is a lot more prevalent because there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of people there that want to run a line, and they'll say, why is the line down? Let's turn it on. Well, somebody may be in the machine clearing a piece of, you know, in my instance, a piece of dough or a piece of bread out of there, and then there goes their fingers or their hand. So have control of that circuit. It's very easy. Master Lock makes them, again, Grainger, Amazon, less than $10 you can buy a lock or something like that. But kind of in a practical aspect, in just a regular laundromat, just make sure you have control of the circuit. If you're the only one working on it, make sure it's off. If you have a partner working on it, just make sure that they don't touch it. If it's a plugged in power source, be in visible line with where that plug is, so somebody doesn't go plug that back in. A few things. So around first aid. So if you have an injury in your laundromat, or doesn't even need to be an injury, somebody has a medical condition in your laundromat and goes down, have a first aid kit. Somebody gets cut, have a first aid kit. Again, it kind of goes back to that laundry care. So our laundromat cares about your safety and your well-being. Have that available, that you've thought about that. You might want, actually, I take that back. The eye wash is less expensive than this, but you can lease these. Having an AED, you know, one of those devices that somebody has a heart attack or goes down. I've had this in my career 6 times in my plants where people went down. 2 truck drivers and 4 just regular line employees had a heart attack in the middle of their shift. And because we had an AED, it saved their life. It's not a bad thing to have. And you may even, you know, if you have a heart condition, they're about $1,200 if you buy them, and they're about $25 a month to lease, to have them available in your laundromat. And just a misnomer on there, you cannot fail with those things. They will not let you shock somebody that doesn't need shocking. The heartbeat has to be stopped, and those will work. So don't be scared of them. Bloodborne pathogens bag. If somebody has a cut, somebody slips and falls, and they, you know, bleed all over the pavement or the floor. You know, it seems like common sense, but common sense ain't so common. You want to have a red bag, again, available, those same sources I did, to throw the rags, the towels in, things like that. And obviously keep bleach, which most laundromats do, to clean it up. You don't want to just clean it up with good old water, because it's still, you know, you still have hepatitis C, still have HIV, you still have all those, you know, bad nasties that people can get infected by. I actually had this happen once in my plants where there was an employee who was emptying the basket, reached into the basket, and lo and behold, somebody had thrown a needle in there. And, you know, she did claim she got hepatitis C from it, but that's another story. So keep that, you know, so the bloodborne pathogen stuff. Working surfaces is what the Department of Labor calls slips, trips, and falls, or the prevention of. So keep those clear. Again, kind of common sense, but again, it's again, I need to hear things 9 times before I remember. Water on the floor, electrical cords across the floor, you know, maybe a laundry cart in the way, just anything, any obstruction. It could be a dryer sheet on the floor. Again, it goes back to good housekeeping, you know, kind of constantly vigilant. That's another reason I put a broom and a dust mop, you know, on a nail on the wall. That people, you know, some people will just pass it by, but a few will pick it up, and if they see a mess, they'll just clean it up. And people can slip and fall on that. That is one of the most costly, from a compensability standpoint, type of injuries out there that you can have. It's really hard to disprove a back injury. You can certainly prove somebody gets cut open or a finger chopped off or something like that, but a back injury in the state of California, it only has to be 1% causation to be to fall under compensability. So if you have a disgruntled employee, or there's a customer there that is looking for a lawsuit, and they have something like that on the floor. And again, back to what Bill said, cameras are always a good idea. They don't lie. So the other things I have: fire prevention, cash management, ergonomics, and emergency response. Those are my last four. We already talked about cash management. Fire prevention, you should be checking your fire extinguishers that are mounted in a visible place at least once a month. And it's literally as simple as seeing if that little arrow is in the middle of the green area on the little dial. If it's not, then you either need a new fire extinguisher or you need somebody to change it and fix it. You can do a fire, companies do that. A lot of them are in the larger municipalities. They'll come and check your fire alarms, your fire extinguishers. They'll check your first aid kit and your AED. People like Cintas and Aramark do that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. And it's a very inexpensive service. Ergonomics, this is one. So if you have a lot of wash, dry, fold business, think about it from a standpoint of what ergonomics is. It's designing the workspace around the human instead of the human around the workspace. If you have a lot of repetitive motion, and it doesn't have to be, the stereotype is I'm lifting 80-pound pallets or I'm lifting this big heavy stuff a lot. No, it can be a 15-pound load of clothes and I'm just doing it continuously. And if you have somebody with a compromised back or a compromised knee, things like that, anything repetitive motion, you want to be concerned about, or at least question. One of the easiest solutions to that is rotation, and make sure that your attendees or your wash, dry, fold people aren't doing that 8 hours a day, or aren't doing it all day, every day. Make sure they rotate. They go and clean up the laundromat, they empty the baskets, they wipe the machines down, and they kind of alternate. They do an hour on, the 20 minutes off and doing something else and back around. And, promoting good stretching and good things like that are also good. There's probably a lot more to talk about there, and doing evaluations. There's companies that do just that, but just the basic stuff, being aware that if you do repetitive motion. And then emergency response, this goes back to cash management and good, vandalism prevention. Make sure that your emergency numbers, including your own or your manager or your lead attendant at your laundromat, their phone number is listed on a visible place, typically near that phone I told you all to get, so they can get a hold of somebody. So if somebody does see, a crime going down, or they start seeing, we actually, when I said we had a person shove a hard case suitcase in a top load dryer before it started to smoke, there was a customer that actually picked up that phone and called the fire department, and they were down there in just a few minutes. So having those numbers posted, and again, going back to complaints and preventing vandalism, if you have your number posted, you've got a little old mailbox that says complaints and suggestions. If you provide direct access to somebody that can do something, that's going to go a long ways, and it doesn't cost anything. So having those things. I think I probably, summarized the article I wrote. There's more detail in that, but I've been on my soapbox for way too long, so I'm going to shut up.
No, that was a lot of good information. Bill, you said you're anxious to hear what he had to say about employee safety. Did you learn something?
Oh, absolutely. It's nice to hear from a professional. But I'll add a couple of little simple things that I think he hit on. My audio went out briefly, but it's very important, and I've seen this happen before, is the attendant that you hire, make sure they understand what to do in case of an emergency. It's a simple thing. If a dryer catches on fire and all they do is run out the door, it's being safe, but a lot of times they don't know the address that they're working at, or the 911 information. They'll panic. But just explain to them, if something happens, this is the address of the business, and you'd be surprised that people don't know, and this is what you do. You mentioned the fire extinguisher. don't be a hero and try to put the thing out, but just get everybody out and safety wise. I had at one of my laundries a slip and fall that occurred when I was there and my wife was there. And my wife used to work for an attorney for 30 years. So uh, the rascal, she says, this is what we need to do. You first of all, aid whoever fell, ask how they are. Don't try to pick them up or anything else. Sympathize, empathize with their injury. Don't try to disprove that there wasn't water on the floor or anything else, but you ask them, are you okay? And whatever the answer, do you want to go to the hospital? Can we call an ambulance forward? What can we do to help you? Empathize and sympathize with that person. It means a lot. An attorney will tell you, did you ask them? And fortunately, the lady's husband was there, and he said that he would take her, but she refused. And then you make a note of everything that you asked the person and her refusal to go. But simple things, but yeah, that's Matt's information was spot on.
Two other quick comments, just building off of you, Bill. So the fire extinguishers, just so you all know, a fire extinguisher is designed and built to put out a fire the size of a garbage can, and one-time use only. So if anybody sees a fire and it's designed to get out of the building. Now, if you have a garbage can that caught on fire or a small fire like that, and it does not look life-threatening or anything like that, yeah, you can try to do it, but tell them, like you said, Bill, don't be a hero, call 911. And just a note on 911, that I've had this happen before. I've had it happen well and had it happen badly. We've had employees call 911 and say, hey, I got a fire at the wash basket. Click.
Yeah.
Shit. So if you call 911, or to your point, train your employees, if you call 911, if the building's on fire, don't stay in the building, but on your cell phone, stay on the, this is how I say it, and remember this, stay on the phone until you can see the whites of their eyes, okay? Because they're gonna wanna know, I mean, if it's an injury, they're gonna wanna know where the person is. They're gonna wanna know, I've had fire trucks drive by me before. Like, whoa, wait back here. And you can direct them. You can use the old, it's past the big oak tree on the corner of this and that. Just guide them in. You are their your tower control. Okay, so stay on the phone. Do not hang up with them until they get there.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to the end of my questions, but we do have a question from one of our attendees related to security systems. She said that their current store has a professional system where they get charged a monthly fee for the service, and they wanted to know if either of you have any thoughts on the generic one sold at like a Costco or a Sam's Club, because they're building a new store and they need a security system. So I guess, does it matter what type of system, or?
Usually a system that you pay a monitoring fee, that's what they do. They monitor it at night and when it's closed, and if something were to occur, they notify the police department and you what's going on. A Costco or Sam's could be a great camera system, as long as it's able to, that you have access to view it on your computer or your cell phone. So a couple of differences there. The monitoring system I like a little better, but to save a few dollars, the Costco or Simply Safe or something like that. And a Simply Safe will also monitor, if something were to happen. But it's kind of important. Yes, a deterrent. Yes, that alarm system went off and makes a lot of noise, but usually it's designed after 4 minutes to reset, and the noise goes away, and the bad guy goes, well, nobody showed up, I'm going to try this again. So spend a few extra dollars, and the monitoring is not a bad thing.
Quick comment. One, I would if you buy it from Costco or if you buy it from a service, I would definitely put their sticker up. It's kind of like, you buy a burglar alarm for your house, make sure and I'll just use a name, you know, the ADT posters out there. So it's a pre-warning to everybody. To some professional criminals that may not be, they just may know what, you know, what lever to pull, but to the most, you know, to the part-time vandal or bad guy, they may say, I'll go to the, you know, the store next door and break into them. It doesn't look like they got anything. The other thing with the paid services, they go on what's called a step system, or should be. And if they don't, you need to do this, is if they get an alarm, they get a call, they're supposed to make a phone call to somebody, and that may be the owner. But if they can't get the owner, then that's not the end of the game, or it shouldn't be. They then need to call, you know, the lead attendant, or they need to call a relative, or they need to call. There should be at least 3 tiers of phone calls that they have to call, and that's what you pay for. So don't not use that. I've been on those tier lists before. That's all I know. So.
We do have one more question. So she's saying at the very beginning, I think, Bill, you mentioned having, or maybe it was you, Matt, I don't remember, 2 people together to empty the coins. She said they collect their cash in the back office, but does this pertain to loyalty cards?
Now, the good thing about a card system is all the money's in one place. Instead of money being in a washer and a dryer, it kind of eliminates all the vandalism because there's nothing to break into and steal. But yes, all the money's in the back. Now, the 2 people I was suggesting was, yes, one collects, one is observing to make sure there's no distraction or stuff like that. Now, that's not always the case with everybody. Usually, you know, that maybe Matt, you can collect by yourself. Just be, you know, I used to collect the stores at 4 o'clock in the morning just because I was up and the place was locked and I could do whatever I wanted to do. I had a rear loading changer, which is also very important, but it was, of course, set inside of a wall, and I could do all my collecting and counting and sorting behind this wall. And it's kind of important behind the wall, if you have a camera system, have a monitor, you can look outside, and before you exit that room, you can see if somebody's standing on the outside or you know, something in the parking lot or something like that. And you can elect to say, well, you know, I'm not real comfortable. I'll dial 911 and have a police officer meet me on the outside. That's very rare, but it's kind of a good thing. 2 people if possible. But if one person, if you're collecting, especially loyalty card system in a back room, then have a monitor so you can be the one looking at that monitor and see who's outside, and see, so that it's safe. And do what Matt says and put it in your money in a toolbox or a Tide box or something like that, and go ahead and exit.
Yeah, I would just add the from a, you know, loss of cash standpoint, loyalty card, yeah, you probably don't need a second person, but from a consistency and a perception of secure, if you are doing loyalty card and money, it really doesn't matter to the criminal because they're not going to know the difference. So I would still do a 2-person system. And you know, once you start alternating your plan, then it gets confusing and people forget and get slack. And if you can do 2-person, you know, we do 2-person. It's just one extra level. It doesn't cost you that much more, if anything, being that they're already paid. So.
Great, thank you. So that kind of brings us to the end of the question. So just in the last minute or so, I just wanted to share some upcoming programs that we have coming up. So we do a monthly virtual program, and in November we're doing one on reintroducing your new store to the community. So for those stores that have done a retool or redesigned, kind of, you know, doing a grand opening. So we'll have some owners who will share that experience. And then we will end in December with a Ask Me Anything with some wash, dry, fold experts. So it'll be pretty much just an open Q&A where you'll be able to ask all of your questions. So if you go on the coinlaundry.org/events calendar, you can see those events and register for those. We also have a few face-to-face events. We've gone back to some of our local Connect Live events in a few locations. So coming up November 3rd, we have one in near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And in December, we'll be doing 2 in Texas. So one in Dallas on the 8th and one in Houston on the 9th. And then lastly, coming up in just a few short weeks, we are holding our first ever Wash, Dry, Fold conference, November 16th and 17th at a hotel in the Chicago suburbs. We have some fantastic speakers. We'll have some panels. We're going to do some live demos of folding and packaging, so you can get an idea of how different operators do that, and lots of opportunities to network and chat with some of your peers on the topic of wash, dry, fold, pickup and delivery, and commercial accounts. So it's coming up soon, but registration is still open for that. Hotels, you can book up until November 4th. So with that, I'd like to thank Bill and Matt for sharing their knowledge with us. I know I learned a lot. Hope that all of you did. So thank you both for volunteering to serve as panelists today.
You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you. And as a reminder to everyone, this was recorded and you will get a recording within 24 hours. So you can go back and listen to some of their great advice. So with that, everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.